You were going to say your last name?
I don't want to do that. I also saw everybody kind of like clam up for a second. Like, oh shit, we're doing it.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're there now, though. Okay, that's good. All right.
Just do it. There. Pull the Band-Aid off. Pull the Band-Aid off.
Fuck it, we're doing it live.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome to the newest episode of Pod of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me, as always, the two lovely ladies, Stephanie and Natasha.
Hello.
Hi.
So on today's episode, we will be covering the 2013 movie, The Witch. Before we really start getting into everything, girls, what is your history with this movie, if any?
Go for it, Tasha.
I knew about it. I had started it once before a few months ago and very quickly fell asleep.
My intro into it has just been we have a child who is 19 and she loves this movie, and she's been telling me that I need to watch this for years. And so I was like, keep putting it off, because I'm not, honestly, even though I'm on a horror podcast, I'm not the biggest horror fan for the most part in certain genres. And so then Nick was like, yeah, this movie's right up your alley. And I was like, fine, I'll watch it. And we put it on this list. And all I know is because the title is, it's about a witch. And then this was my first watch through. So.
Yeah, the first time I watched this movie was probably, I don't know, I want to say maybe like 5 years ago or something like that. I'd heard conflicting reviews from two people that I knew. One was like, it's boring. And I was like, okay. And then the other person was like, this is the greatest horror film I've ever seen. And I was like, those are wildly different.
Oh, wow.
But it is slow. So like makes sense. If you do not want a storyline that's running at that pace, then yeah, you definitely aren't going to want to like this movie. No,
it's definitely a mood piece. It's definitely a slow burn. Like, if that's not for you, yeah, I can see, like, this definitely, I would say, is a divisive film. I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea in the sense or whatever. But shocker, it's A24. It's kind of my cup of tea.
Yeah.
You have to have some idea, I think, of like witch history too. So that the slow piece on top of like that time frame, I think you get more out of it if you have an idea of what's going on.
True. I also think you get more out of it if you can actually understand the language in this movie.
Yes. I watched it with subtitles, which at first was like, because we were watching it in the bedroom, so I had to be like a little quieter. But at the same time, I'm glad we had it, because that language even if we were listening to it at volume, I still would probably need it.
Yeah, it's set in the 1600s, and the director, Robert Eggers, actually casted English actors with heavier accents and history with the accent to get that colonial feel, because this is basically supposed to be a 1600s Puritan colonial American movie. It's like it even says, like, the first thing you see, it says The Witch, a New England folktale. And boy, does it just like lean into like its era. It is a what do they call it? It's a period piece, like through and through. It is, if you were to watch like Jane Eyre and stuff like that, it's very just like, it's a snapshot of this period of time. Like, it's,
Well, and they lean heavy into the language. Like, they're not pulling no punches. It's like, we are being as authentic as we can nowadays. And I think A24 and as a whole leans into historical movies a lot.
I liked at the end how it said like a lot of this commentary, a lot of the language was taken like from court documents and like actual like quotes. So that was really cool. I like to think of it more as a period piece and less as a horror movie. And I if you go into it with that, then you're not expecting it to be like suspenseful, I guess.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been kind of rambling a bit and everything, but like, let's let the listeners know what we're kind of talking about. So The Witch is a 2015 folk horror film written and directed by Robert Eggers in his feature directorial debut. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy in her film debut alongside Ralph Ineson, Kate Dickey, Harvey Scrimshaw, Eileen Granger, and Lucas Dawson. Set in the 1630s New England, its plot follows a Puritan family who encounter forces of evil in the woods beyond their farm. So this film, its budget was $4 million. And just from your guys' viewing of it, do you think, like, especially since it came out in 2015, so it's relatively recent, does it feel like it probably cost more than that or less than that? Like, for like what you're hearing for its budget, like, does it seem a $4 million movie nowadays?
I think realistically, like, depending on how they're building their sets and stuff, this movie as a whole is stripped down to bare bones as a whole, in my opinion. So, like, you're getting everything in a very, like, clean, no frills, very dirty, grungy kind of way. Like, it's just, we live in this place and this is what we go through. And there is no extra, like, parts to it in that aspect. So, I mean, I would think 4 million is probably a little bit lower than I expected the budget to be, just because making movies is expensive, but they didn't do a whole lot of extras. So I could see where they probably had to, you know, maybe that's why they only paid 4 million. So I don't know.
And I was kind of thinking, I think maybe the opposite. I was expecting it to be less than 4, or like 4 or less, because of those same reasons. Like, it's a field and a woods and farm animals and a very small cast with very rustic sets. So I think 4 million is pretty steep. Like, and there really isn't like a lot of effects. There are some, but
but not many.
Not a lot.
But I think about, like, people buying cars nowadays that are $100,000, and, like, just the thought of building a set piece, and there's multiple of them in this, probably, like, that in itself probably cost $1 million in itself. Like, that's kind of where my head goes, because I always think money's supposed to go further than it does. But when you hear, like, the Avengers movies costing like $30 million or more than $100 million or whatever it is, it's crazy.
More.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, some of those movies, like, I remember hearing, like, one of the Avengers films or whatever costing like $250 million to make. Like, like, so I 100% understand that, like, when you start getting into those millions upon millions of dollars, you don't even understand the numbers. Like, they go so far out there and stuff. But the reason I ask is just because doing research for other films that we'll be doing in the future and stuff like that, seeing what this film cost, and I believe, personally, in my opinion, it's a beautifully shot film and everything. And then I've watched some other films that I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to say it's how much, but its budget was higher. And I'm wondering where that money went. Because I'm like, if this was shot for $4 million and these other movies are shot for way higher budgets further in the past and stuff, I'm just like, so where exactly did that money go if you're, like, within 10 years of now shooting a film for 4 mil, and you're going to say, like, I'll just throw out a number in a year, but like 1980, and this was a $10 million movie, and it looks and is acted like shit and everything. I'm just like, did the money go to your Coke dealer, or like, where did it go?
But I mean, if you think back in the 80s, $10 million got you a completely different set of technology.
True.
If you think about, like, computers back then, they weren't as good and they were massive and more expensive. But now things are pared down and cheaper.
Yeah, true. But if you look at inflation and stuff, that $10 million in 1980 would be like $40 billion today, it feels like. So that's
$40 billion for the
like
beat?
that, you know? Sure, why not?
This is a $40 billion movie.
Yeah.
I've emptied out all of everybody's savings. This movie cost $7 trillion. But it was a $4 million budget, and it ended up grossing, its box office gross was $40 million.
Oh, wow.
So they definitely got their money back.
That's good.
I feel like this would have hit different in theaters too. This would have been a good one to watch in theaters.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is one of those films that like after you're done watching it and stuff, it's a good one to like kind of talk about.
Yeah,
because like we were talking about off mic, most movies while I'm watching them and stuff, I take like 2 pages, maybe 3 pages of notes. This movie got like 6 pages of notes, and like heavy notes from me, because there's very little, I don't want to say very little dialogue, but there's a lot of action being done through body language and camera movement and stuff, and not so much with words. So the fact that like there's a lot of notes is because, oh, this was happening. It wasn't a lot of quotes. It was a lot of like, and then we see this thing, and then we see that thing, and what this references and stuff like that.
Well, I said like most of my A24 films that I personally seen, apart from one of them, they all feel like that. Like a lot of them are low on the dialogue and very heavy in the mood, and a lot of the actions speak louder than words concept. And that's what I find beautiful about them, the ones that I've seen. But also you have to pay like really deep attention, and like every little piece is a nuance. Like you have to, it's hard if you don't.
It's not a movie that you can get up and just go get something and come back. You have to pause it and go. Like,
yep.
And I think that's the difference between like it's art. I hope this doesn't sound like whatever, but like a lot of A24 movies, like you don't necessarily watch them for like that entertainment value, but it's those, like you said, those nuances, the colors, the camera angles, all of that stuff, where you're watching it for more than just the sake of watching a movie.
Correct.
Oh, you're saying you don't want to be pretentious, but I'll just be pretentious for you.
That's not my job. That's yours.
It's the difference between watching a film and watching cinema. Like you're literally the difference between a popcorn movie and watching something that is artistically crafted.
Yes. But it's weird that the popcorn movies cost way more money than the artistically crafted ones, which is just weird. It's like so strange.
Well, because you die a starving artist. That's the whole thing.
Apparently, yes.
The same idea as like a football player versus a painter.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
A teacher. Or
an actor in one of these A24 movies.
Yeah, yep. Which, I mean, what's her name?
Anya?
The lead. Yeah, Anya. She's went on to have an amazing career. This was her debut film.
Yeah.
And since this, she's been in like The Menu, which is...
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a favorite of ours as well. And she plays Princess Peach in the Mario film.
Yeah, well, she also played in The Northman, which is another A24 film, which was also directed by the exact same guy who directed The Witch. Oh, so, I mean,
another movie I fell asleep to. Very
really.
It's bad, man. It's bad.
We saw it in the theater.
You told me about it. Drew watched it. I was asleep on the couch probably within 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
It's this is work, man. Like,
oh man. When the Valkyrie showed up at the end, I wept.
I really do love watching movies. Just my body. I'll be sitting there like full up, like up. I can't like get comfortable ever. So I get up, like legs are crossed, I'm ready to go, and then I can just feel my eyes like getting heavy, and then my head tilts back, and I like I'm one of those people that shoot up. Like I try so hard to stay awake. It's terrible. Is she also in one more thing? Is Anya also in One Night in Soho?
Yeah.
I thought so. That was where I first saw her. I really, really liked her in that.
Yep. She's my Hollywood crush.
All right.
But are you girls ready to get into it?
Let's get into it.
All right, let's throw up that spoiler warning. So from this point forward, we are going to ruin this film in one way or another. You're either going to love us or hate us. We're going to go through it and just kind of give you our thoughts on it. If you got a problem with it, find us on the street corner, whatever. I really don't care. I don't give a toot.
You're ridiculous.
So with no further ado, let's get into it. This is The Witch by Robert Eggers.
Okay. Are we doing reviews now?
Yep.
Okay.
So, we got every episode we read a 1 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10. Who's got the 1 out of 10?
I think I do. I haven't read this yet, so this is fresh to me too, guys. So bear with me because this is interesting. This is our 1 out of 10. No spoilers here because I don't think the film actually has an ending or any plot reveals. Okay, at least not any that could be explained. There's a moronic family that gets kicked out of their village in the opening scene. They speak in a sort of pseudo post-Elizabethan English, and they don't use electricity or lawnmowers.
Mind you, it's 1630.
They're being judged for not using the things they don't have.
What the
Does
fuck?
not exist.
It doesn't exist.
Oh, we're not even done yet. Hold on. We're getting there.
What losers? They don't have a
Lawnmower. Yeah. One thing we do know is they are ultra religious.
Did they miss the Puritan part of this movie?
Apparently. Lots of talk about Jesus and hell, but that's pretty much the extent of what I can make of the dialogue. Apparently, as the title suggests, there's a witch somewhere in the wilderness. There's also a lot of goats, which is nice, but not enough to save the film from itself.
Oh my God.
As the film faded to black, I wondered, what's the significance of the staring rabbit? Who is Black Phillip? I don't understand, but the film isn't interesting enough for me to search out answers.
Wow.
What the fuck?
We're not done. They had a lot to say.
Okay.
Here's another thing. This film is abstract in the extreme, which is kind of true. Okay, yeah. I agree with them on that. Not Pablo Picasso abstract, mind you. Sorry. In fact, if I compared this to a movie painting, it's more like when you see those paintings made by elephants that are given a paintbrush. What the fuck? These guys, they should write 1-star reviews for all movies because this is entertaining enough. The result is pure rubbish. Loads of silence between moments when the characters speak, and when they do utter a sound, they're mostly unintelligible. Lots of wandering around in the woods doing nothing, and they also do a lot of whining and crying about a baby that they've lost. They lost it? No, they did not.
Oh, your kid's gone. Get over it.
Yeah, really.
Stop crying, you big baby. Jesus.
Oh, no, they said baby.
Okay. Some of the discussions are about whether the baby is in hell, whether a witch or a wolf stole the baby, and whether the baby might have been eaten by wild beasts. Who knows? Perhaps the baby got tired of these idiots and toddled off to find his own way. This baby is still breastfeeding in the movie, so he didn't toddle nowhere. Who knows? Perhaps. Oh, hold on. Sorry. I didn't care about any of these people or what they were doing. You won't care either. God. And why would you?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That was so good.
So judgy.
Yeah, totally 10 out of 10.
No lawnmower. Stop crying over your baby.
Yes, because you're supposed to not be sad and worry if you're actually religious if your child goes to hell or not. Like, come on.
They're super religious, can't mow their yard, and all they do is bitch.
And they hang out in the woods doing nothing.
Just wandering.
I mean, they do some of those things, but
just the way that person made them sound. He was
what an asshole.
The whole time. I'm surprised that person sat through the whole movie.
I know. They just sat through it just so they could write that review.
Yeah. Fuck just your goats. Fuck your baby. Fuck your corn. I'm out.
Yeah. No, don't. The goats were the one redeeming quality.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
More goats.
More goats.
Yeah.
More goats, more lawn mowing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they like the goats, because they're like
they are lawnmowers.
They did have lawnmowers.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right, Tasha, what's our not shitty review? Let's go.
Okay.
Oh, that was good.
They say I saw this movie a couple of times already, and it still lingers in my head every day. The tone and imagery of this film crawls inside me and nestled itself in my mind like no other had in a long time.
Okay.
It was very
it's graphic. Yeah.
Wait, there's 4 more paragraphs.
Oh.
The aspects of this film, lighting, sound, dialogue, pacing, composition, created an atmosphere so real I was no longer sitting on my couch watching, but rather living this inherited Puritan nightmare. This was the result of a director who not only painstakingly researched every aspect of colonial life in the 1630s, but who also executed his ideas with striking confidence. Calling this movie scary doesn't do justice to how truly powerful and intense this horror scene feels. He doesn't hold back, shy away with the camera, or use bullshit jump scares to frighten you. I like a good bullshit jump scare. Rather, he composes scenes like an artist would with a painting. In fact, I would almost say this film could be seen as a Francisco Goya painting brought to life. So unlike
not elephants,
not an elephant. So I think by relation, then your reviewer thinks Francisco Goya paints like an elephant holding a paintbrush.
Apparently so. I don't know who that artist is. I will have to Google it.
Yeah. He is brilliant at what he shows you, but more in what he doesn't show. Films like these don't come around very often. There is true passion seen here by a very hungry, driven, and intelligent director. I am truly impressed and hope he has a long, successful career. So I think the 10 out of 10 says quite a bit about like what we were already talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that is kind of what I was talking about. Like, this isn't for everybody. Like, if you, I mean, I'm going to sound pretentious every time I speak because I guess I am, but
you said it.
If you're watching a movie to just be entertained, that's not what this is for. You know, if you're watching it because you're like interested in movies, then it's going to be more up your alley. Like, just like nowadays, you know, you're not going to get any of our kids to sit down and watch Alfred Hitchcock films because they're like, oh, it's from the 60s. Ugh. But like, if one of them had like an interest in like directorial craft and stuff like that and cinematography, they'd be like, oh man, the shot in the birds when this happened, like that's true. That's more like, so.
Yeah, right. The movie definitely is. But the other part is like, if it hits really heavy in religion. So like, we are not religious people. So I think that needs to be like said right now. Like, I think I'll put this out for myself. You guys can share, but like, I follow along the lines of like agnostic. So, leaning into Buddhism beliefs. So like, this didn't hit in the same way as if you were a Christian or something along those lines. I imagine. So I did not go into it looking at it in that scope because I don't believe in the things that these Puritans believe.
Likewise, it was more of the historical attributes of it and like the witch trials type concept, correct. Understanding the Puritan ethos a little bit. But yeah, to have those like personal beliefs, I didn't go into it with that either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm a stark atheist, but it doesn't change the fact that you can empathize with these people and their struggle of being feeling that they've been forsaken and feeling as though they've been cursed and all that, like they feel that they're doing the right thing that they've been told to do. And even though they're trying to do the right thing, everything's going poorly for them. And correct. You can empathize with that.
Yeah. But like I said, if you guys are in the Christianity background, I could see where this could hit completely different for you because you have a lot heavier because it's going to hit on a lot of things you believe and it touches a lot on that kind of stuff. And in a sense, I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it just because what it would be like if I was in that mindset as these characters because of what they go through and their mindsets overall. It's just crazy. Like it was really good movie. So
yeah, it's just like in like how heavy I can only imagine that The Omen and The Exorcist are for people that are Christian or specifically Catholic.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So yeah, if you've been raised Christian or, you know, you're a lapsed Christian, whatever, you know, but like you still have that kind of stuff and you believe in the heaven hell thing, this has got to be like amplified into the terror. I don't find this movie scary, but that does not mean that I don't love this film. I don't think that that's necessary to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's jump in. Where are we starting at? We're at the judgment at the beginning of the movie.
Yep, the film opens with the main family being banished from what they're referring to as the plantation, which is basically the Puritan colony. And then and it's a lot of like you're hearing kind of like the case, and they basically the dad is voicing that he knows better by God's word and stuff than this community and stuff. And the community is just like, kind of rid yourself of this place, do us a favor and go. So it cuts to the family on a wagon out of town with very tense music. And I read that the composer wrote this to be very atonal, which atonal means it's very dissonant. Dissonant means it's not harmonious. It's like the antithesis of that. So it's a lot of notes that are conflicting with each other to give that tension because of so that there's not a lot of harmonious music in this. Anytime music's playing, it's very not intense like Jaws, like doo 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 doo, but like
it's ominous,
very ominous.
It's tense, like it's so the movie doesn't make like you're not seeing a lot of scary things, but the music makes you tense up with that
Correct.
Dissonance.
Yeah, correct. So the family finds, like, on their wagon trip, their wagon vacation, the family finds land that they will then begin to make their homestead. And the family gathers and they kind of put their hands up like to God and everything and are joyous. And this is basically the only time you see like this joy on the family's face, like this, all right, this is our new beginning, here we go, we're gonna do it right by God, and we're gonna have this great we're gonna prove them wrong, and then the camera just starts like to linger at the forest, and there's that music again, and it's just they're setting up this farm next to a super dense New England forest. And then it cuts to I always butcher her name, Anya. Is that it? Anya. It cuts to Anya, whose name is Thomason in this film. So it cuts to Thomason playing peekaboo with a baby.
Oh, you missed a spot, though. You did miss one thing.
Right.
So the woman that's the mother in this, her name is Catherine, and she's breastfeeding this baby sitting next to their homestead. And then she then hands the baby over to Thomas and is like, here, go take care of your sibling. The only reason why I note this is because in my notes it says woman from Game of Thrones. That's the mother, Catherine. She plays in Game of Thrones. She's breastfeeding a baby. Well, if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, then I'm sorry, I'm spoiling this for you. But she breastfeeds in that show too all the time. And it's just weird that the first like real interaction you get with her in here is another breastfeeding scene. Super weird, very ironic to me.
Yeah, it's almost like they bring up like the notes for casting and stuff. They're like, we need someone to breastfeed. They're like, I know exactly.
Yeah.
I got a guy.
Yeah. Yep.
So
go ahead.
Okay, so she's playing peekaboo, and the camera keeps cutting to her like peekaboo, and then down to the baby that's laying in the grass in a blanket. Then it goes a couple times, and then she goes peekaboo, and then you see her face kind of like not this big smile, but like this like kind of shock on her face. Then it cuts, the baby's gone, just disappeared. She looks up, and you can see like a little rustling, barely, but just a little rustling on the forest like line. It's at this time, this scene haunts me.
It's the what the fuck scene.
Yeah.
Literally.
So you see this, you see the baby disappears. You then see the baby by firelight.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a real baby.
It is.
Yeah, this is some like from like last podcast on the left. This is like some gold star scene. Like this is like
It's disgusting.
So you this is the first time that you see the titled character, the witch. And the witch is in this scene. From what I'm reading, you don't see her do this, but this is what she's doing. She's
very implied.
Yes. She has eaten the child. She takes the remains and puts them in like basically a mortar and pestle. So is the pestle the bowl? Sure.
I think so.
Yes.
I don't know.
In this wooden bowl,
The
mortar or pestle, and then is using what is essentially going to become her broomstick and is smashing it in this and starts to bathe herself in the viscera and blood from said child,
which is disgusting.
It's very gross,
and it doesn't show you kill the baby, but everything is implied very heavily here.
Yeah,
just
when you see
the face of the baby like cooing and not knowing what's going on, as like the witch is like wielding a knife, that was even almost more like uncomfortable than the rubbing of the body parts.
Yes, like when it happened, Steph was like, "What the." Is that she fucking kill that baby? And I'm just like sitting there quiet because I'd seen it before, but she's like, oh my God. I was like, yep, that's exactly what happened.
Well, then there's like this part shortly after that of the old wrinkly old woman. Like, if you have a problem with nudity, you should not see this movie. It has a few like pretty, like this is probably the most nude scene that in the end, but oh my gosh, like she's laying on the ground or doing something and like, it's just, you see everything. Yeah.
I did look it up afterwards because I was like, why? What's the point of this? Why do we need to see this? And it come to find out that the viscera and fat of babies was part of a witch's recipe for flight. So that's why you see it rub all over her body. And then she rubs it on her broomstick.
Yep. Because right after that, you see the full moon and she's rising on her broomstick.
Yeah, I didn't see that part because I was too busy writing what the fuck is going on my notes and just shaking my head. Like, I cannot believe I'm watching this movie and they killed a baby in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucked up.
Yeah, so that was the first thing. I was like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, this is making no sense.
No.
Yeah, because like during all this time, basically the only dialogue is like we'll say court scene at the very beginning and then the peekaboo. Like there's like very little dialogue in between those two things. Yep. And then it's just like infant side instantly.
So did Anya or Thomason, had she already said her prayer or was that after?
I don't have any.
There's a close scene of her just praying, and I think it's before. Neither of you have anything in your notes about her praying?
I remember it in the movie. Like, I remember what you're talking about, but I don't remember the actual timeline of that. So no, it's somewhere in that timeline, but I want to say it might have been after, like she was praying for the baby, maybe. I honestly don't know. All I have for my next part in my notes is the mom's crying, obviously, and she's like sobbing incoherently. And there is the brother is getting up, which his name's Caleb, and he's waking up and they sleep in like this homestead and they shoot this thing. And this happens like 3 or 4 times in the movie. And it is super creepy. He's strangely sexualizing his sister, Thomas.
Yeah.
It's strange. Like they cut to her like chest, even though she's not like busty or anything, but they focus on that oddly enough a few times in this movie.
I think it's kind of leaning into with like the religious thing of like the sins of the flesh and stuff like that. So he's coming to this age where he's becoming sexually mature, and that's something with her also in the film, becoming having her period and stuff later on in the film. But it's really showing. I feel. The temptation stuff. It's like it's not being like salacious about it and like trying to be exploitative, but it's showing like this is the only female that he has any connection to anywhere right now, and he's kind of hitting this age where he's looking at the female form as sexual. And with religious, like religious dogma and doctrine and stuff, like that's a sin, you know? So I think it's kind of showing that, because you're starting to see that through other parts of the film too, with like lying and stuff like that. So this is kind of, they use this kind of as his sin, I feel, where it's not that he is consciously, objectifying his sister or anything like that, and they don't get gross with it. Like, there's no incest in the film or anything, so don't worry about that. But they definitely, like, you know, he's a young boy, and this is how young boys' brains work, whether they like it or not.
And I think that's why going back to the prayer, I want to keep that in our minds moving forward, because like you said, Nick, the boy is having like these unpure thoughts in quotes, but that's natural. Lying is happening. But the family outside of Thomason sees themselves as these pure, holy people, where Thomason is the one that prayed and said, I've been sinful. I broke the Sabbath. I have it here somewhere. But like going into detail, like she understands what she's done as a human is wrong. And she says, I know I deserve all the shame and misery of this life and everlasting hellfire, but I beg for thee, the sake of thy son, forgive me, show me mercy, and show me thy light. That's just the snippet of it. Mm-hmm. So she's like confessing, like, I've screwed up a lot, but you don't hear that in any of the other family members.
Not until it's too late. It's not until it's too late, like, for lack of a better term, that things really start going sour or south or however you want to go, that then once, you know, what they've sown, you know, the seeds that they've planted, they're now reaping, are coming back, and it's too late. Like, that's definitely like an underlying narrative of this film.
Yes, if you draw it as a Christianity thing, like they're actually being punished by that standard, but we're talking about a witch here that doesn't necessarily play in the same cards. So, but in their belief system, it does play into this, like, heavily.
Well, when Robert Eggers was asked about the film and stuff, he was asked, like, so is this a supernatural film? And he said that he wrote it and shot it to be both at the same time. It can be read as being a supernatural film where there is a witch, and it could also be read as it's these people's paranoia and guilt and repression of their own wrongdoings that's causing all of this, that they're projecting all of these things that they're doing wrong onto the other people in this family because they can't take responsibility for their own actions. And that's why the things happen the way they do.
And I see it as both. Like, there is obviously a religious component to this. And if you think about, like, we'll get into like Black Phillip, but like, I think the witches and the religious aspect are both there. It's just kind of how you see it. If you're seeing it through the puritanical view, or if you're seeing it through somebody who sees it for the witches component. Mm-hmm. But I think they're really, really tied together.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then this is the time where, after all of this, Caleb and Dad go searching for the baby in the woods, and they're under the guise that they're going hunting, I guess, or they're doing one way or the other. They're going hunting, and then they're having like this deep talk about boys' corruption, and they're focusing on that while they're like resetting traps, and they're not really getting anything.
Yep, they're going out. They're under the guise of that they're hunting and stuff. They're bringing along their flintlock rifle, and after so much time and stuff, the dad says that they have to give up the search for the baby and that it might have been a wolf that took off with the baby is the only thing that he's got in his head, like trying to rationalize what has happened. It could have been a wolf that had taken off with it. It's at this time then that Thomason checks in on Mom, who is still a mess. She's sobbing in her bed that like has like the curtain drawn on it and stuff. And then Thomason goes to gather some water. Then it cuts back to the father and son hunting, and this is where you get like the heavy religious teaching time. They're resetting the bear traps and stuff. They're not getting, like, all of their traps are coming up poorly, like they're not having any luck with this. The son, I believe at this time, Caleb starts having a crisis of faith, and is really questioning, like, if God exists, why are all these bad things? Like, why is I think it's Allison or Alicent, the baby. Why the baby's gone missing? What about this? Why is this happening? Why did we get kicked out of the thing? And he's basically just questioning, like, if God is as good as you're telling me he is, then why is all this bad stuff happening? And the father basically tells him to have faith in God, and we will speak no more of my ruler. So he's like, the father is very heavily held in his convictions of God.
The baby's name is Samuel in the movie.
Samuel. I don't know where I got Allison.
I don't know.
I kept wanting to call Thomas and Allison the whole film. So
I don't know.
I kind of saw that differently too, where he's panicking about, well, is the baby in heaven because he wasn't baptized? Oh shit, what happens if I die right now? Will I go to heaven? And then he's having like this existential crisis in that moment. And yeah, that's when his dad was just like, we're done talking about this.
Yep. The father calms him and tells him basically just to have faith. Like, he's in the best way to describe it, he's just like, hey, chill out. God's got your back, which isn't helpful.
Yeah.
This child who looks like he's maybe like 12 is legit having this existential crisis, as you put it, Tasha. And he's just like, no. Let Jesus take the wheel.
Even though they've been kicked out of their church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Therefore, yeah, I think that's the whole thing. They kicked out of their church for purely doing something wrong, apparently. And his brother's gone. But
yeah, and they kind of give you the idea of, like, later on why they were kicked out, if you're not aware. It's basically it's how prideful the father is. It seems like he won't take direction from anybody other than God. That is basically how I read it. Gotcha. So in a community setting where it's, everyone working to help everybody out, if you're not going to help everybody out because you don't feel that God wants you to, that's not going to bode well with everybody else.
Well, that kind of plays out, though, well later in the storyline when his daughter basically puts him in his place. So that kind of makes sense. It's like, well, you did all this shit because you were thinking you didn't have to follow any other guides. And now she's like, nope, this is true. And like, she's calling him out essentially for his behavior later on, obviously.
Yep. So it's at this point we cut back and Thomason is gathering eggs and one of them drops, and I don't know the proper terminology to call this, but it is a fertilized egg. But it kind of there's like blood in it and stuff. So it kind of looks like stillborn.
That's what happens when eggs get fertilized. They very quickly
just in general
have blood in them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know. That's why you should always crack your eggs in a smaller bowl, so then you don't get that in your food.
That's more cooking tips with Tasha.
You can cut that out, but I couldn't help it.
No, it's going in. It's going in.
Cooking tips with Tasha.
So it's kind of weird because they make it kind of seem like these shouldn't be fertilized. These are supposed to be eaten. We're not looking for more chickens. We're looking for like edible eggs.
Well, and then they cut to you meeting Black Phillip for the first time.
And those damn twins.
And he gets loose because of those damn twins. Yeah.
Not yet. So you did miss one thing. At this point, the father and son are still out in the forest, and the dog sees a rabbit
with the weird eyes.
Yep. And the father loads the flintlock rifle and goes to fire at the hare, but it kind of misfires and it flashes into his eyes. It's almost like he gets some like flint in his eye or something. And then we cut to Black Phillip.
Were we supposed to think that the rabbit did that, or just that it was a fluke?
Well, I've got some stuff about the hare that I can talk about in a little bit.
Okay. I want to know more about the hare.
Yep. So at this point, Black Phillip has entered the chat.
Yep. And I already walked into this and I was like, and I hope this doesn't give anything. Well, I don't care if it does. It says Black Phillip, the goat, gets loose and looks like Baphomet, or however you pronounce that word.
Yep. Yeah, Baphomet.
Yep.
Yep, I saw that coming too.
The twins are singing with him, and Thomason's just sitting by the forest, and they're just like the twin. I call them the twins. I don't know if they're twins, but they act
are.
like they're twins.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
So they're like singing like Black Phillip, like in unison and stuff, and just like really, really cheering this goat on. You know?
They're the weirdest lyrics too. I should have written them down, but it's the weirdest song.
Yeah, some of them are very ominous kind of lyrics and stuff. But let's see here. Yeah, next time we see this hair multiple times. So the next time we come into it, I'll give you a little more info.
Okay.
So,
and go ahead, honey.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, isn't this next part the part where she's down actually gathering the water and
Caleb's there?
Yeah, and then Mercy shows up. And I don't have anything written down about the Caleb thing. I know Caleb's there and she's talking to him and stuff. And she's like taking care of him essentially.
Not yet. There's a little bit more before we get there. So it's at this time the twins are singing and dancing and stuff with Black Phillip.
Okay.
And then the father sees that Philip is out like roaming, and he fights him into the pen. He grabs him by his horns and fights him into the pen. And the mom is like completely pissed at Thomason and is like, where's your brother? Where's all this stuff and everything? And the brother lies to the mother and telling them that they went looking for apples. I saw apples down in the valley, so we went down to get apples in the valley, because he's basically playing her in a way that this is something that she would accept, because she kind of has this like greed aspect to her. You kind of see like she wants apples, and there's a silver cup gets mentioned. Like there's all these material things that in this time she basically wants more out of life. It's kind of what, like, for 1600s colonial America. Yeah, but like she's kind of the catalyst for those things. Apples, which are not easy to come by for peasant people, as it were, and then like I said, the silver cup later on and stuff.
Well, and if you watch her through the movie, the mom, and I didn't think about that till this right now, but you don't see her actively doing anything, really.
Nope.
She's like the kept woman. Like, I have these children, they're going to take care of things. My husband, he's going to take care of things. And she doesn't, not from my recollection, does she do anything. She basically just hands everything over to her husband and then her oldest daughter, Thomason. And is like, here, do all this shit. That's because I said so.
I don't know. She feeds a crow later on in the movie.
Yeah, and a baby.
I missed the crow.
You missed the crow?
You missed the crow?
Oh, man. I don't know.
I don't know. When we get there, maybe you'll remember.
Okay. Yeah.
So we cut to the father chopping dat wood. I've got that line written so many times in my notes. Chopping dat wood.
Yeah, that's his thing.
Just coping skill.
Yep.
And then this is where we cut to Thomason and Caleb down by the river, and I've got bro trying to catch a glance of big sis.
Yep.
So this is where you were talking.
Yeah, and they're just down there, and he's kind of doing the same pervy thing, and then he just starts talking to her, and I can't remember, they talk about the apple thing and how they didn't find it, and how he's just having kind of pushing on that existential crisis again, and she just starts like being the mom that his own mom isn't, and starts taking care of him in a way. And then my favorite character, well, not my most favorite character, but my favorite character, I love her. So Mercy, which is the twin girl, comes in, and she just starts her voice and her she's everything. She's so funny.
Her. Oh my, nope. Mm-mm. No, ma'am.
She's there. She's a shit stirrer, and she's singing and picking on her sister and calling her, or saying she saw a witch, and then she's telling her sister she's the witch, right?
Well, her entrance into the film is she comes out of some rustling bushes and is saying that she herself, she's like, is the witch. I'm the witch of the woods, and all this stuff. Like she's putting on these guys that she's the witch, and she said, Black Phillip said, I can do what I want. And that I saw a witch and all this, like she's doing all this stuff. And then it's at that point that she is saying that maybe Thomason's the witch of the woods, like kind of egging her on a little bit. And Thomason does not fuck around.
Snaps.
Straight up claims to be the witch to Mercy to scare her, and gets to the point where Mercy falls down and she's basically like sitting on her and explaining how she's going to eat her and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And just super serious. Like, I'm gonna fuck you up, kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't tell mom.
And, don't you dare tell mom.
Yeah.
Which she does that a few times in the film. And then it's after this scene we cut to dinner time, and they're having dinner and having a prayer around the table. And it's at this time that mom wants her silver cup.
Yep.
Which I forgot to write in my notes, but I believe it's the bear trap is when they're setting the bear trap out earlier before they see the hair and stuff. I believe Caleb asks his father where he got it, and he says that he traded the silver cup into town to get this because we need this more than we need these treasures and stuff. Yeah. We need things to survive.
He said the dad said that he sold it to the Indians, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And then he got the traps for their food and stuff like that. And but the mom, she brings it up, and then nobody says anything about it though. They don't cop to their lies or whatever.
And poor Thomason just gets to be the brunt of it once again.
Yep. She basically becomes the scapegoat.
As the dad just sits there.
Just sits there. Everyone's like, they don't even say like, I don't know where it's at. It's just like, where's my cup? And everyone's silent. And the mom just takes it out on Thomason, and she's just like going to town and stuff, and it goes to the point where, you know, everything that you do, something wrong happens and all this stuff, and goes like, did the wolf take the cup too? And stuff. Mm-hmm. And when that line, I was like, damn, you were a stone cold bitch. Like she does not like her daughter, even though her daughter is doing all of the motherly duties in this household, it seems.
Yeah. But not well.
Well, doesn't she after this send her out to go check on the animals in like the middle of a storm or something? Like, no, maybe it wasn't the storm this time.
She didn't put the goats away.
That's
what it was. They could hear the goats.
Yeah. So I couldn't remember all the ins and outs. It just says goes out to check on the animals. And then that bunny with the weird eyes is back.
Yep. We get some tense music and the hair is back and it's staring. So
now can we learn more about the bunny?
If you're at this point listening and stuff, you already know that things are going to get spoiled. Stuff like that. So a hare appears frequently in the film. In colonial New England, hares were considered magical creatures in their own right. They were often associated with witches, either as a milk hare, which stole or spoiled milk from the farm animals, or the witch themselves, who were thought to be able to turn into a hare in order to spy on and influence people.
So this one did both.
Yeah, so the way that I'm reading that and then watching the film, that's the witch. The witch is coming and is just taking on the form of this hare, and is because every time the hare is around, bad things happen. So the flintlock causing that to happen, and then
it's like self-preservation. It won't let it get killed.
Yep,
that's why I was wondering if like the hare had something to do with the gun going off.
But if you also look at the hare's eyes, it looks almost exactly like Black Phillip's eyes.
Oh, Black Phillip doesn't have regular goat eyes with square pupils?
He has like these weird colored, the same like coppery color eyes that Black Phillip has is the same coppery weird color eyes that the bunny has. That was the first thing I noticed because I was like, why do they have similar eyes? I mean, obviously they're not 100% the same, but they are so eerily similar.
Oh, nifty.
It's at this time. So Thomason's outside at night. She sees the hare. There's like goat sounds and stuff, the tense music, all that jazz. And then it keeps doing this where like there's like this tense stuff and it just cuts to like a quiet scene. So it's at this point that the mom and dad are laying in bed and the mom is just sobbing, which is understandable. Her life is falling apart. Her youngest child is missing and stuff. And the only like solace that the husband can give is that we must turn our thoughts towards God. Basically, stop thinking about it and worry about your prayers, which I'll never understand that thought process. And the mom is saying that God has
and then they
cursed
start
this
talking
family.
about how they're going to then sell their daughter into servitude and go into town and basically pawn her off, which is strange to me because, like, okay, so what are you going to do then? Who's going to take care of everything if you get rid of your daughter that's taking care of everything already? Like, I think that's strange. But yeah, and then the kids are sitting up above in like the loft or wherever, and they're overhearing every single bit of this. And so they're going to get rid of her, and and at first I thought they were just selling her, but from the sounds of it, it's just they're putting her in a new home for like to be of service for whatever reason.
I thought they were marrying her off.
Maybe that too.
Like she has her period. She needs to go serve another family or serve another house or something like that.
I think that's what they mean by servitude, is that they're going to marry her off to get a dowry of some sort, maybe, because then she can serve
her
that
husband.
family by by bearing children for them and make herself useful, which is a problematic and dogmatic way of looking at
one less mouth to feed is probably what mom's thinking of, and getting some income by selling off her daughter into marriage. At 13, I think she was supposed to be 13 or 15 in this movie.
Yeah. Yep. So it's at this time that they're talking about it, and it cuts to Caleb readying a horse. Yeah. Right? Yep. Is it a horse? Yep. He's readying a horse and everything, and Thomason comes out and is basically like, well, I'm coming with you. They're basically like going out into the woods to look for traps to see if they can gather up food and stuff, because I don't know exactly what their motivation is at this point, other than they just keep hearing about how the mom of the family is talking about like all these bad omens and that they're going to starve and stuff. And Caleb and Thomason are taking it upon themselves to like, we're not going to let this family fail. Like, they're the ones literally just going and doing this stuff while dad chops wood and mom wallows in her
the twins
own misery.
Continue to be horrible.
Yep.
Fucking no! Don't you dare talk about Mercy like that.
Well, they go out and they check their traps, and then the bunny's back for the third time as they're among all of this, and then the dog goes after the bunny. And then we have our next what the fuck moment of where you see it a little bit later, but she falls off the horse. Thomason's character does, and the boy goes along to find the dog, and he hears the dog like crying out in the pain, what dogs sound like when they're crying out in pain. And then we have a dead dog.
Yeah. And it doesn't linger on it much, but you can see like, it basically looks like the dog was eviscerated. Like it doesn't look like it got into something or anything. It looks like something got it and left it. So with our previous thoughts of the hair, like self-preservation and stuff, the dog must have gotten too close and the witch gutted the dog.
Well, I noticed here that this is now the fourth time we've seen it. So we see it and she falls off the horse. We have like a lapse in time because then the brother's running after and she's kind of knocked out. And then we see the bunny again when he sees the dog. So we have now met this hare 4 freaking times in this movie so far.
Yep. And the family starts searching for him because they can't find Thomason or Caleb. And Caleb is like they're split up. So Caleb is just getting lost deeper and deeper into this woods. And Thomason ends up kind of finding her way out and comes upon her father. And once she finds her father, it cuts to Caleb happening upon this hut deep in the woods.
Yep. And
it's such like a quintessential, and it's like a quintessential witch's house too. Yep. I really like that.
It's super eerie too. Like when you know the title of the name, everything, like the title of the movie and everything, and then you see this hut deep in the woods, and Caleb's just by himself out here. You're like, fuck. Like it has this like was it Grimm's fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel kind of feel. Like you're like, oh no, this is not going to go well.
But yeah, and then the music that's playing at this time is just super intense. And then when you actually see the witch, She is beautiful, obviously. My other favorite thing is she looks like Little Red Riding Hood. And I like the drawl that they had between saying it was a wolf that took the baby and then she's dressed like Little Red Riding Hood. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. So yeah, this very beautiful woman in red and black comes out and just gets closer and closer. And Caleb's kind of like, what's going on? And she meets him with a kiss. And we cut back to... That
was very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
That made me very...
He's 10, 12 years old, and this girl's like in her mid to late 20s is what it looks like. Oh, but
look, you should see her hand when it's on his shoulder. Yeah. And it's like this old hag hand on him. And I was like, this is disgusting.
Yeah, it's super creepy.
It is.
So it's raining and everything, and mom is losing it again because now her baby's gone, and now her eldest son is missing. They can't find, and this is all like within a day or two. Like this is not like, at least that's how it's kind of shot. It just feels like it's nonstop. And now Caleb's missing. So it's at this time that the mom's losing it and everything, and the dad fesses up to the mom about selling the cup, and the mom is snapping at him saying, I knew you were false. You know, like basically how I read this was that her dad kind of like, it's one of those tropes of like the father not approving of his daughter's boyfriend kind of thing. So it kind of has that feel of like, you know, I knew you were false. They always said that, you know, this, that, and the other about you and all this stuff. Like it kind of comes from maybe that she came from more of an affluent family in the community and stuff. And he won her heart, but against the better judgment of her family and stuff like that, she went with her heart. And these things are coming to surface, these things that the others were seeing, but she didn't because of her rose tinted glasses are now coming more to surface.
Okay.
I missed all of that.
That's just how I read it.
Yeah. I interpreted the cup as like, this is the one thing I have of my dad.
Yeah.
How dare you? And then it was kind of left at that. I didn't.
Gotcha. But like, it definitely is that. But like what she's talking about, why she knew he, like, I knew you were false because of these other, like she's talking about these implications in the past, like these things that happened in the past or whatever.
Yeah, I missed that too.
It's at this point that Thomason now takes care of the goats. And when she's doing this, Caleb is found leaning up against a fence in the rain, shirtless, like almost like stretched out a little bit on it, like it's holding his weight. And he looks very ill. So Mom and Thomason start to take care of him by the act of bloodletting. They put his head up against a bowl and they put a little cut like on his brow and let the blood come out. And bloodletting is a practice that a lot of people believed in the past. Some still kind of believe that by letting the impure blood out of your system it'll basically let the demons out of you. Yep, it'll cleanse you. I mean, there is like leeching and stuff like that. There is a methodology around some of that does make a little bit of sense about like getting some blood out of your system to allow your body to create new, fresher blood and stuff like that. But like the way that they're doing it is basically like snake oil kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and the leeching thing is like to take blood out of like places that have pooled too much blood or to pull blood into those areas a little bit that are dying off. So, I normally when you see bloodletting in movies, it's usually at the wrist. So I thought that using the head was actually kind of creative because I've never seen that I can recall in a movie. Because like I said, usually it's like some open wrist on a bowl somewhere and then they're just bloodletting into that. So I found that fascinating, I guess.
And it's at this point that we cut to, is his name William? Is that his name? The dad?
The dad's, yep. Yeah.
William be cutting that wood again. So it's like anytime he could be like rectifying some issues or trying to fix anything, he just goes to like this manual labor task all the time. And
they don't need it.
No, like he's building up this this massive amount, which I mean, like, yes, wood is needed because the winter is coming and stuff like that, but he is amassing an insane amount. And then we cut to Mercy talking to Black Phillip. And Thomason is milking the white goat, and instead of milk coming out,
it's blood.
It's blood.
But that makes sense now that we know about the rabbit tainting milk. So I thought that's
true.
Cool. Everything's coming together.
Yep.
And I believe this is Thomason like sees Mercy and basically is like, don't tell anybody about this. Like, she's constantly like kind of hiding this stuff. And I've got where it jumps forward to the mom says, "Does this not look like witchcraft?" I'm not 100% sure what I was referencing at that time. What is she talking about?
So Caleb wakes up, he's crying out, and and then like he's just like losing his shit basically. And they're like trying to tend to him, and after he's done crying out, his jaw locks, and his dad brings out I think it's like a knife or something, and tries to pry his mouth apart. And that's when they're upstairs, and all the family's upstairs, and the apple falls out of his mouth onto the ground. Yeah. And it's more of like that ominous, like wicked witch feel to it. I felt like that was very akin to like the Snow White and Seven Dwarfs feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where we're at.
It's also tied to the fact that that's what he lied about. He lied about going to get these apples. And
I didn't even think about that.
That's what he is. And it's a full apple. It's not like a little bit of apple. He's like choking a bit and his teeth are locked. And when they pry his mouth open, a full apple comes out of his mouth and falls to the floor. And that's when she yells about, "Does this not look like witchcraft?" That makes a lot of sense why that's the only note I took, because this scene is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the kid on the floor is like writhing and sweating, and he's like, he's somewhat cognizant, but somewhat not. And he's just literally, everything that's spewing from his mouth is religious. And his little sister and his little brother, I have in the notes here, that are saying that Thomason is the witch, and they're blaming her and saying all of this is because of her and her doing and all of this. And so then mom and dad and everybody's like, pray, we need to pray for him. And the two little kids, they can't. They just fall to the floor and they start writing
their prayers.
Yep, they can't talk. And
isn't that later?
No, this is all in the same scene. Because they fall down when they're like, no, we need to pray over him. And they fall down because they forget their prayer. And they're like, what do I have here? Writhing on the floor, unable to really do anything. And Caleb just starts pouring literal prayers out of his mouth as he's staring up at the ceiling. And then he has this joyous look on his face, like he's like smiling now and he's no longer sad. And he starts talking about God and wanting his salvation.
That was a beautiful monologue. That boy,
it was so good.
Was just
I said the same thing.
Yep.
According to Robert Eggers, he did not direct the child, Harvey Scrimshaw, through most of his difficult scenes of this film. In those scenes, Scrimshaw was directed by Ralph Ineson, I believe is how you pronounce it. Eggers had no children at the time, while Ineson was a father of two and frequently worked with acting and had worked with instructing children on acting and knew much better how to coach a young boy. This was not planned, but Eggers admitted to Ineson catching on that Scrimshaw had a hard time understanding Eggers' direction. According to Eggers, Ensign used Scrimshaw's passion of soccer and coached him like Scrimshaw was preparing for a high-stakes game of football. So he basically just like really got like on his level and stuff, was able to, get it. And we just get this like insanely good performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's just to a T, like everything that's pouring from his mouth, and he's like his face, and he's like almost in this like
blissful,
elation. Yes. Yeah, and he's just smiling and he's like staring up like he's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not seeing it. And then I was like, at this very moment, I was talking to Nick while we're watching the movie and I'm like, he dies. And like literally 30 seconds later, he dies. Yeah, but he dies in a way that's like kind of beautiful in its own creepy way. So I thought that was just a really good ending to his life, I guess.
Well, and like the super creepy part about it is like, so he dies. And then it cuts to like, like it doesn't cut, like it's still sitting there. But you see the twins are still just laying there, like passed out, and they're panting. Like they're just like it's every time it cuts to them doing that kind of stuff, it's super creepy because these kids are like 6. And yeah, they're just panting. And the mom snaps at Thomason, and the dad kind of starts consoling her, but like prior to all of that, the dad starts questioning Thomason about being a witch because the twins are yelling about how she's the witch and blah blah blah. And it's like the first, like everything up to this time, you can see that the father's kind of protecting his daughter from the mother, it seems like, in a way. And it's at this point that he's like, I've raised no witch, and starts questioning her about it and everything.
And I think he threatens to like put her on trial, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. The dad is going to call a council about Thomason, and because the dad thinks that she is a witch.
Well. And she's when she's saying that the twins are the witches or that the sister's the witch, like she's blaming it on them and that it's the goat or something like that. I can't remember if she brings that up, but then then like this is big explosion of all of that, and then dad just basically is like, fuck you guys, and he locks them all in a goddamn fucking barn.
Yep. Doesn't lock them, boards them in, is nailing boards across the door, and
so
locks the twins and Thomason in because basically like they keep talking about Black Phillip and all this stuff. It is basically like, you can fucking just live with Black Phillip then, and boards all of them in with the goats.
Well, they say he's Satan, so that they're supposedly hanging out there with Satan.
Who said Black Phillip was Satan? The twins?
I think the twins did, yeah.
Well, no, Thomason actually does, because
I think they both have.
Okay,
in the movie,
it's when Thomason's calling out her dad of being a hypocrite and a poor hunter and all of these things, and basically is talking about how the twins are the ones talking to the goat, and she's pretty sure that the goat's Lucifer and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, she's just like, you can't hunt, you can't farm, you can't do any of this stuff, you can't provide for your family, and all I see you is as a hypocrite and stuff.
Yep, and then you cut to add in what's your notes now, honey? We probably have this on there 5 times.
Is it dad be cutting that wood?
Yep.
I actually didn't have it in my notes at this very given point, but I knew what it probably was.
A good guess.
It was, yeah. This is one of my favorite parts in the movie because this is where he's like doing the chopping the wood part, but then he is also praying and asking for redemption for his children as they're locked in the barn. And he's like really intense in this, like the acting was just beautiful, and he's like infected with the filth of pride, and he's talking about himself, and so he admits to his faults in this part, and I found that was like really beautiful.
Thomason and the twins are boarded up with Black Phillip, and then let's see here, we've got the redeeming of the children. Like I've got like so much, so just trying to catch up. Oh, yes. Okay. So we get another rustling in the woods after this. So he's, talking about wanting to redeem his children. And the mom awakens to see Caleb.
And Sam.
He's holding Sam. Mm-hmm. And Caleb is talking you missed this part?
I think I fell asleep for this part. I don't remember.
Oh no! This is one of the best parts of the whole movie.
Just keep going.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's
I thought I saw the whole thing.
Nope, you missed it.
So, Mom awakens to see her dead children, And
like, are they dead? Like,
No,
they're
they look
dead,
alive.
but are they alive? Okay.
Yes.
They look
They're
alive.
They're sitting in a chair.
Okay.
Yep.
And Caleb's talking to his mother in a tone that he hasn't spoken in. It's very deliberate
Ooh.
and soft spoken. So it's, and then we cut to the barn. And
Nope,
you hear
I'm not done yet. No, I'm not done yet. Nope. So Caleb's sitting there talking to his mom, and he says, "I have brought a book for you, mother."
Yeah,
And he's asking her to look at it.
Oh no.
Well, it's because it's cutting back and forth.
The only book I know.
Then the next part is when the barn. Now go for it, honey.
Yeah, so something lands on the barn roof, and Allison looks up. It then cuts to
Wait. Thomason?
Yeah, something lands on the roof of the barn with Thomason.
And Thomason
Okay.
looks up. Okay. You're
Yep.
calling her Allison again.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So it cuts back, and in a very deliberate voice, Caleb says, "I've brought you a book, mother."
Okay.
And then it cuts back to the barn, and Allison, God, I did it again. Thomason looks over because she hears this wet noise, and the witch is feeding on a goat.
On the goat.
The
And
white-
she's naked.
Oh, yeah.
And the kids are screaming.
When Caleb is saying, "I have I've brought a book for you, mother," she, like, you hear like this kind of thudding noise in front of her and everything, and it cuts back to the mother is now she thinks she's breastfeeding her child, and the camera it zooms out a bit, like it edits and cuts out, and you see her kind of sitting there like laughing joyously that she's got her child, and it's a crow
Eating her
at
breast,
pulling at it,
Oh,
ripping at
yeah, I did not see that, but I did see the aftermath and was so confused why her dress was covered in blood. That's the part that I woke up to.
Yep.
All right, continue.
So it cuts to morning, and we see that the barn has been wrecked, and it looks as though the goats have been slaughtered.
Yeah, I saw that part.
And it's at this point that the dad's looking around, and Black Phillip comes out and gores him with his horns.
Into the wood.
Into the wood.
So that's another thing, like the apple with Caleb, and then the goddamn pile of wood with
and
the dad,
and the breastfeeding with the mom,
and the breastfeeding crow with the mom. It's all of these things that they just like are holding on to. Are like how they're meeting their demise.
So then the father is like, he kind of squares up a little bit, like you think he's going to fight Black Phillip, and he just kind of comes to terms. Like in his face, you can see it, and he just says, "Corruption, thou art thy father." And then Black Phillip smashes into him, knocks him back into this massive pile of wood that he's been working on, and the pride that he has built, this thing that he has prided himself upon, collapses upon him and kills him. So the mom comes out and is mad and is just losing it about Thomason, and
thinks she's a witch.
And starts screaming about how you took them from me, because at this point she walks out and sees that the father's dead. Her two children have died mysteriously, Caleb and Samuel. The twins, I believe, are dead with the goats. I think so
too.
I don't remember seeing them though.
They don't though, but I don't think they tell us.
Yeah, they don't tell you what happens.
Yeah, I don't know if they're taken by the witch or if they're dead amongst the goats, because the shot of the slaughtered goats and stuff is kind of quick.
Yeah,
I think they're taken.
It makes a little more sense that they would be taken.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Thomason cuts the mom's face with what looks kind of like a little spade, maybe, or a little trowel.
I thought it was a knife, like a kitchen.
I thought it was like a garden tool.
It might have been. Okay.
Yep. And then the mom begins to strangle her, and Thomason then stabs the mom multiple times, and the blood starts to fall down on her face, and it's pretty intense, and it's very sad at the way that you're seeing this all kind of come.
And the music is just crazy again. Like it's just
the sound design in this scene is very intense. Like it just keeps rising and keeps rising. So the mom's dead, and Thomasin looks to Caleb's grave that the parents had dug earlier, and then kind of past the grave, she's staring at the woods. She then goes into, and this is all like in a very silent shot. It's not that the audio is cut out or anything, but it's almost like she's in shock. So she then goes into the house and disrobes her bloody clothes and lays her head down on the table and sleeps at the table. She then awakens to the sound of wind chimes outside, and Black Phillip, it's like she wakes up, comes out, and Black Phillip leads her into a hut. Now, this hut that he leads her into, that's not the barn, is it? Like it's almost like a separate building that we haven't seen, is kind of how I saw it.
I saw it as the goat barn.
Is it the goat barn?
It might be. I don't know. I think I agree with Tasha. I think I might have been like rebuilt, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, like that's just where my mind went, was they're just wandering into a building that's already there. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was like supernatural in sense or if it was the same building.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But she follows Black Phillip into, we'll just call it the barn, and she's looking at him and tells Black Phillip to speak to her. And it's at this moment that we have some of the best lines of this movie, in my opinion.
Yes.
So in this very soft, whispered voice, you hear Black Phillip speak to Thomasin. And he says, "What does thou want? Would thou like to live? Would thou like butter? Would thou like to see the world? Would thou like to live deliciously?" And he says, "Does thou see the book before thee?"
I think it's important that before he goes into like, would you like the taste of butter, a pretty dress? I think it's important that Thomasin has that line of like, well, what can you give me?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? What do you have to give? Yeah. And then it goes into all of these like creature comforts, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all these decadent things in life, you know, which I think it's so funny to say it nowadays. Like, would you like butter? You want some butter? But like, if you think about the 1600s, like butter is like, it takes some hard work to churn some butter, you know? And yeah, he says, "Does thou see thy book before thee?" And she says, I don't know how to write my name. And I love this line. He says, "I will guide thy hand," which is so amazing because Black Phillip is fucking Satan. Like,
let's just say it.
And the whole thing of guiding thy hand is the whole left hand path, is the path of Lucifer, the path of the goat. So he will lead her down this path.
Well, and when he comes, like, he transforms out of a goat into a human form. And when he's walking across, you can hear his boot heels and you can barely see it through this movie. And I love this scene. And you can see his feet, like his boots move. And then you hear the sound of boot, like spurs. Oh. And then he comes beside her. And as he's talking, he puts his hand on her shoulder. You see like a little bit of him along the side, but you don't really get much, but you just see the hand on her shoulder. And I was like, this is just a very eerie, but kind of awesome scene. Like just the sounds alone. And then it's very minimal dialogue, but it has a very big impact.
And the way that Black Phillip is talking, it seems so close to you too. So it's like, it's just an added layer of like intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very like whispered in her ear.
Yep.
It's so good. So she basically, it doesn't show it, but it's implied that she signs it.
She's ready to sign it when she wanted to talk to him, I think.
Fuck yeah. She was like, "This sucks. Fuck this.
Get me out of here.
Puritans. I'm done. I want some Ozzy Osbourne. Come on, bring it on.
I want some butter."
What's the butter? But then she begins to walk nude into the woods with Philip. So Black Philip is leading the way and she's following. And you just start to begin hearing chanting and stuff like,
which is so just induce, like panic inducing.
Yeah.
So they're like cackle yells.
And it's a lot. Like it doesn't sound like one or two people. It's a horde is what it sounds like. It's a lot. And it's in tongues that you do not understand. And basically she walks up and there's a bunch of nude women around this bonfire chanting and speaking these like incantations, as it were, and they begin to float. And then I love this shot. It just cuts to Alice. Oh my God, Thomason's face. Thomason. I don't know anybody named Thomason. I'm sorry. It cuts to Thomason's face, and it just holds on her face as she goes from like shock and awe of what she's seeing to like this wonderment and glee. And as it's just holding on her face, you're seeing the background descend behind her as she begins to float along with them. Yep. And she begins to laugh, and she has now become a witch because she has signed the black book.
I think one of the cool parts where it talks about like it's not what's said, but it's how it's done. And thinking back and doing a little bit of research, seeing the difference between how she's portrayed at the beginning, like one of the first close-up shots of her head, she's looking up and praying. And then the last scene we see her with like like a reddish background, and she's gleefully looking down. So then that again shows like Puritan, I'm praying to God. And then like, I'm a witch now and I have everything at my fingertips.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So happy looking that. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah. It's super dope.
Can we talk about the acting in this movie? Like overall?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's the end of the movie.
I couldn't imagine having to read lines and memorize this language. Yep. With how like that alone is top-notch acting.
Yeah, there was like when I watched the movie, that was the most impressive thing to me. It was like they had limited dialogue, and the amount of acting they had to act their asses off in what they did have, and just the physicality of just like their facial expressions and the way they move their bodies and stuff, like, which is brilliant. And like, I know a lot of people like Thomason's character a lot, and I do like her, but I think the acting goes to Caleb, the son, because of the scene, you know, when he's in the bedroom and he's dying, and like all of his acting in this movie was just amazing. And then I know you don't like Mercy, but I thought she was funny. She was the like the comedic relief for me in the movie. And then the dad, I thought he did brilliantly too. The only one was lacking is the mom. Like I did not like her character at all. I also don't love her acting. Like it was okay. But I think she's lacking the most. I
thought she was very serviceable. Like I thought she was very not like wowed by her performance, but at the same time, like you're not supposed to like her.
Yeah, that's true. We know that.
She is such a spiteful person, and there are very few spiteful characters that I've seen in movies that hit it as hard. Like just from the word go, this woman is just terrible. Mean to her family and stuff. Like it's all about her and stuff. It's very, very off-putting from the get-go. And the two definite like top tier performances are when Caleb is going through his death throes and sees the light and dies. That scene is insane. And then also when the father is praying to God about like redeeming his children and stuff. It's super hard to watch in the sense of just this father just like basically like he doesn't say these words, but almost like take me instead of them. Like it's that kind of like why are you doing this, you know? But super strong cast, and like this movie was made for $4 million and is beautifully shot, beautifully acted, beautifully written. Even though like the dialogue is sparse, everything that is said has weight to it.
Yeah.
There's no like expositional dumps or anything. It doesn't over explain anything. Also, like something that's really neat that I saw about how they shot this film and everything is most of the lighting in this is all just natural lighting.
Oh, that's awesome.
They didn't have like all these huge lights setups and everything because they wanted it to feel real. They didn't want it to look like this big, like glitzy movie. They wanted it to look, oppressive, like in like, like this is not, these are some hard times. Like I could not imagine living like that.
It's bare bones. I mean, they're sleeping on these like floors, the kids are, and the only people who have a bed is mom and dad, and their bed, the kids' beds is nothing. And like, it's just everything is very primitive in that aspect.
So do you think when the mom saw Caleb and Caleb, i.e. the witch or Satan, gave her the book, do you think that they were trying to get mom to also sign the book?
That's what it seems like, kind of, is it's almost how I look at it is that they're only going after the women. So Mercy is the one that's talking with Black Phillip and all this stuff.
I was wondering if she could actually talk to, like, if that was real.
I think it was straight up happening.
That's true. It only did go after the women.
So I think that, yeah. So yeah, in my book, it's a phenomenal movie. It's not one of my favorite horror films, but it's like it's definitely like in the running of like one of my favorite films, though. It's weird. Like, I don't look at this movie as a horror film, even though it is.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's very artistic. Like it hits really hard in the sense, like, I had never really watched any A24 films until we got in a relationship. And then I've watched, I'm looking at my list now, I think there's 5 of them I've seen so far, and I would like to see more. And every single one of them are like heavy in the artistic expression, like more so than most movies that are made. And this one is in the top of all the ones that I've watched because of A24 films, because of, it was just, for its budget and the way that it's shot, it's just beautiful.
So who would like to go first on their rating?
Go for it, Tasha. Okay.
So
remember, there are no sacred movies.
I know. So as far as, like, after I watched it last night, Tosh gave this movie a 3.
Oh my
God. What the fuck?
Now,
you know what? Never mind. That's unexcusable.
But this is why I made that comment at the very beginning of, if you have no idea of the culture or the time, it's a very dry movie. And
it's slow.
And it's slow. And then I didn't know what was happening. After looking up a lot of stuff and like reading, more about Puritanism, more about the witch trials, and understanding that time period, there's so much that they reference that you don't know if it's not your thing, which is why I like to think of this more as like a timepiece or a period piece over a horror movie. Like, you can't just watch this as like you said, somebody that's just interested in watching horror movies and expect to get something out of it. So
true.
Last night, Tosh, just watching this as a, hey, let's turn on the witch and see what happens. Solid 3. After doing some research on it, I bumped it up to a 5. It's not one that I'll probably watch again, but I do appreciate the movie. I appreciate it as a film, not as something that I would watch for entertainment.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. I agree with her in the sense that I wouldn't actively watch this and be like, man, I'm going to sit down and watch The Witch tonight. Because if you're looking for pure entertainment, like, that's all you're looking to get. Like Nick calls them popcorn movies, essentially, where they don't have the most depth in them. They're just very entertaining. Mm-hmm. This is not your movie. Like, this movie is, you need depth here. That's what I like about it. But I think this needs to be said from all the A24 films I've seen. you have to watch or be willing to probably watch these movies multiple times because you pick up new things over and over and over again. Like I was thinking about like this movie and like The Northman or The Green Knight. There's so much density in these movies that if you watch it the first time, you're going to miss a bunch. You watch it again, you're going to pick up a bunch of things and have a different appreciation. But most of the movies I've seen, except for one of them, is a little bit on the slower pace side. But I love this movie because it's beautifully written and the storyline was really entertaining in the sense of like you get submerged in the storyline. For me, I felt like this was a good solid 7.5 because of all of those things. The only thing is it is a little dry in terms of this. It's a slow pace. You have to appreciate it in an artistic aspect.
Yeah. So, I've been saying it the whole time. I love this movie. I'm not going to go on a huge diatribe about it. I kind of piggybacking on what Steph said, beautifully shot, beautifully written, beautifully acted. It gets all of the substance in an hour and a half. Like everything that happens in this film is tightly packaged. Sound design, like everybody is just doing an amazing job in this film, in my opinion. And I'm a very big stickler of giving scores at the 8s and higher. Like I'm just like, I don't know. Is it better than this? Is it better than that? And The Witch, I'm giving a 9 out of 10.
Holy shit!
Wow,
I'm really impressed.
I really do love this film because I believe it. Like I said, like I don't look at it as just a horror film. I think it transcends that because it's a period piece. It's a family drama. It just took like a lot of people look at horror as like almost a slur for some movies and stuff like that, and I've never fully understood that. This is a horror movie. It is about a witch terrorizing a family. There is murder, there is violence, there's all this stuff, but that's not what you're here to watch. You're watching this family struggle and stuff, and it is a horrifying experience for these people. And I've watched this film many times, and I'm going to watch it more. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest if you're going to watch any A24 film, this is the one you should start with. I believe that if you don't like this one, not that you won't like anything else they've done, because they don't do just horror. Like they do a lot of different things, but tonally and artistically, I think this is a very good like litmus test on if this is kind of your cup of tea or not. Because of that, I give it a 9 out of 10. Like I think that it's a once in a decade kind of movie. I don't think that there are many films like this that have come out in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So if we're doing with my lower score, The Witch gets a 65. With my higher score, The Witch gets a 72.
So we pass.
So we pass.
It's not as good as the Scream one, but yeah. That was the only movie we've actually agreed on at this point. So,
yeah, it's gonna be
I have a feeling that we're gonna have another one we're gonna agree on very soon.
Oh yeah.
Feeling my bones.
Again, forgot to mention at the top, this is a movie club, so we will let you know what movie we are watching for next week's episode. And my God, we are watching the 1992 cult horror comedy classic.
Sure.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah. Please come by next week and listen to us talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. From Pot of the Dead, I'm Nicholas.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tasha.
And come back and listen to us, or else.